There is no patriarchy. There never was one. There is no rape culture either, at least not the woman victimizing fantasy rape culture referred to by gender ideologues and social justice warriors. The term, rape culture, was coined in the 1960s and referred to institutionally supported rape of the mostly male prisoner population in American jails, a problem which, 45 years onwards, persists with very little change or public concern. However, that term, referring to a real and ongoing outrage, was appropriated by gender ideologues to refer to a constructed myth of female-centered victimization. In a popular article gone viral and widely republished on the Huffington Post, at the Good Men Project, and elsewhere, we are told that being male makes us automatically complicit in the sexual victimization of women. But aside from the sheer insanity and naked vitriolic hatred embedded in this thinking, there is considerably more to be learned by analysis of the pervasive man victimizer bad, woman victim good narrative. The author of that gone viral rape culture apologia, and yes, I'm using the term apologia correctly, concludes his article with, "Don't limit yourself to being a man, be a human being. Being a man is not enough. You should expand and improve yourself to become a fully realized human." In other words, men are not fully human. They are lesser beasts. If you think this analysis is hyperbolic, consider the words of author Kay Heimowitz, whose writing consists mostly of a repetitive message telling post-feminist men they are failing to be women's convenient utilities. In a late 2013 article for New York City-based City Journal, Heimowitz wrote, "Boys come into the world with less natural human capital than do girls. Boys are less human than girls." But Heimowitz, for all of her public lionization, isn't breaking any new ground here. She's just repolishing the same hate excreted 5 decades ago by feminist icon and violent sociopath Valerie Solanas. Quoting her, "The male is a biological accident. The male gene is an incomplete female gene. That is, it has an incomplete set of chromosomes. In other words, the male is an incomplete female, a walking abortion, aborted at the gene stage." Solanas's unfiltered hate is reflected, remixed, and continually repoured into pleasantly shaped jello molds by her modern inheritors, like Heimowitz, Rosen, and other populist cheerleaders. But it is a mistake to imagine gender ideologues, mainstream as they may be, are leading our society's contempt and scorn towards men. They are mere cheerleaders, repeating embedded ideals of a long-established and well-heeled currency and legacy. During the First World War, which was an extended argument among aristocrats, fought through the proxy of sons of the poor, millions of conscripted men were ordered to charge against entrenched machine guns over open ground. In just one extended battle fought between July and November of 1916, German and Allied casualties totaled more than 1 million dead men. Good men, but not good in the sense that they were noble or brave, simply good in the sense that they died for the convenience of aristocrats and the leisure caste. No corresponding mountain of female corpses appears anywhere in history, because it is men who are disposable. It is men and boys, or at least their pulped corpses, which grease the machinery of civilization, because, obviously, that is what they are for. If you're a man, it's what you are for. At least that is the unstated and often the unconscious consensus of the rest of the world. You, if you're a man, are not a human. You're a draft animal. If you're any good at all, you're a provider and a protector. You're a cash machine. You're a sperm dispenser. You're a violence dispenser for your social betters and a violence receptacle for people of higher social station than you. You know, the leisure caste. You don't have reproductive self-determination. Your gamete cells can be used by others with or without your consent. The decision to do so will carry for you the burden of financing for up to 18 years. You don't have the right to freedom from violence, particularly if a member of the leisure caste demonstrates affront, or insulted dignity, or fear. You do not have the right to not be murdered. Now, traditionally, only powerful bands of criminals were likely to do this to you, or governments, which are basically powerful bands of criminals who have convinced the public that they own some sort of legitimacy. But increasingly, private citizens in the leisure caste can also kill you with very limited and diminishing legal repercussions for themselves. In 2014, the international media frothed with outrage over hundreds of girls kidnapped by a religiously motivated political bloc in the nation of Nigeria. But meanwhile, outside of fringe and independent, minimally trafficked blogs, nobody mainstream reported any mention of the thousands of boys murdered in the same political struggle. Thousands of boys killed. No mention. Hundreds of girls not killed, simply abducted. Result? International outrage for those girls. Of course, why would anybody worry about the killings of thousands of farm animals, or the loss of industrial equipment, or the waste of an agricultural crop? Inconvenient to local economies? Surely. A source of moral outrage? Hardly. It's an old pattern. In genocide through history, it's the men and boys who are extinguished. Sure, women are often raped, taken prisoner, and mistreated, but they're not exterminated. That's a privilege reserved for the boys. But it's women who are the victims. Quoting now. Women have always been the primary victims of war. Women lose their husbands, their fathers, their sons in combat. Women often have to flee from the only homes they've ever known. Women are often the refugees from conflict and sometimes, more frequently in today's warfare, victims. Women are often left with the responsibility alone of raising the children. This was a statement by Hillary Clinton, speaking at a conference on domestic violence in San Salvador, El Salvador, on 17 November 1998. And this quotation of hers has always perplexed me. How could the deaths of men be a lesser hardship than the survival of women? Could Clinton have been insane? A sociopath? Well, yes. But then wouldn't her supporters have excoriated her for so callously disregarding the deaths of men, while whining childishly about the relative inconvenience of having your male relatives die? But Clinton was understating her point. Women have always been the primary victims of war is incorrect. Women are the only victims of war, because men are not victims. Only people can be victims, and men are not people. Men and boys are not human. Men and boys are not people. If you are a man or a boy, your lack of human rights is simple and unremarkable because only human beings, that is to say, only people, are afforded human rights. But I hear you ask, what about the patriarchy? What about rape culture? What about the war on women? What about domestic violence, with its male victims erased, as it is reframed with the language violence against women? That, my friends, is all myth-making. That is all for the purpose of controlling you through shame and fear. You are a slave. For as long as you believe in the myth of male evil, the myth of male violence and male perpetrated oppression of the members of the leisure caste, who happen to control most disposable income, who control most of the electorate, who control the minds of children and the identities of men, and who live longer and kill themselves less, I could go on and on. But while you believe the cultivated myth of that all men you are one of the good ones, while those others are evil oppressors and patriarchs, while you believe that, you are a slave. No. Sorry, you're not a slave. Slaves are people. You're an owned animal. Maybe not even that. You're an appliance. You're certainly not a human being.